Hello, everyone. Astenia Caputo here with Valence Fitness. We are doing another episode, and I'm really thrilled to have my next guest here. But just to let you know, for those of you who haven't tuned in before, Valence Fitness is a talk show that I got started, I don't know, a month and a half ago already, that is about helping individuals look at adversity in a positive way. What I mean by that, we're going through a pandemic right now. It's been really difficult for people to stay positive, and I wanted a type of vehicle to help others hear from individuals from different walks of life, people who have different stories to tell about adversity and how they were able to move forward in a positive way, or how maybe they reframed their thinking. Maybe they weren't looking at things very positive and they were able to reframe their thinking and change the direction of the outcome. So that is what Valence Fitness is about. It's about being strong mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, intimately. I think it's really important for us to focus on that too. We're all stuck together in the home. So how are you dealing with your relationships with one another in the household and socially? That is lacking right now. We do not have that social connection like we used to. So how do we keep our spirits high? How do we keep our strength there? What do we turn to find our strength? So today I have a wonderful guest that, oh my gosh, I've been so blessed with the type of people that have been coming aboard. I'm so thrilled to have this woman join us. She is actually a native New Yorker. I like New Yorkers. They're pretty cool. And she now resides in Dallas, Texas area. She is actually a speaker. And what she told me is that she believes that the foundation of excellence begins with a servant's heart. I really, really like that. I think that is very telling of where these stories may be going. She draws from her own life experiences to connect to her audience. And I think that's where people are very successful when they are speakers, when they draw from and share from their own experiences. So I asked her what her mission in life was, and it was to spread hope to those who are parents or caregivers, or they're taking care of kids with special needs, or they're taking care of the elderly, maybe an elderly parent, or those that are just hurting. She wants to be there for them, those who have lost hope. And I am so thrilled to have her here. I can't wait to hear which story she's going to choose to share with us. But she is the founder of Jeremiah's Voice, and she'll be able to tell us a little bit about that as well. So please welcome to the show, Jacquie McIver. Welcome, Jacquie.
Hi. Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me and this invitation. And I just want to say, I love your spirit. It is so genuine and authentic. It radiates even through the cameras. And I appreciate that. And we need that. We need that energy to come, that positive flow, even through computers and telephones. And so I appreciate that. And I appreciate you taking a vision and thinking about others. Because a lot of times, unfortunately, that's something that we don't do. I was just sharing with you a little bit before we started the call and the show. And the biggest thing for me is I'm in a different place than I thought I would be. I'm in a season of life, not just because of the pandemic and not because of all the other tensions of going on in the world, just because life happens.
Oh, yeah.
And when life happens, we have an opportunity of how we're going to approach it. And I've been, over the last 10 years, I have had to literally give up everything because I have the wonderful blessing of receiving of my son. And when he came into the world over about 10 years ago, Jeremiah, he was 1 pound and 15 ounces.
Yes, very small.
Understand, I've never seen anyone that small in my life. And he's given 24 hours to live. And I had one decision as a mother. Was I going to believe for his life, or was I going to give him up to go to heaven? And as a mother who had never had, this is my only child, and I waited this long, I was 42 years old. So understand, I'm older in life. And the decision was, but I was a pastor at the time, not married, preaching God's word about faith and trusting God on everything. And here I'm faced with this decision. And when I tell you that decision changed the whole I guess, the trajectory of my life, because then I remembered who God really is. It was not someone I talked about. It was something I had to hone in on and believe for my son's life. And he only gave him 24 hours to live.
Yes.
And now here we are 10 years later, and my son is alive and growing. Yes, did he have some brain damages? My son is 9 years old. He'll be 10 in October. He's had 11 surgeries. I have not had 11 surgeries in my entire life. And I'm talking about major surgeries, from heart surgeries, from brain surgery. I'm talking about hip surgery. I'm talking about surgeries that take you in and you don't know if you're going to come out. And he's a child. The thing that I had to learn that taught me anything as a parent or someone who loves, it taught me, one, about love, but it taught me about faith.
Yeah.
I did not have the strength. I didn't have the intellect. I didn't have the know-how. There wasn't a mommy's book on what to do. None of those things existed, and they still don't exist. But I had a knower deep down on the inside that if I just trust in something greater than myself, that things will get better. And I won't say the journey was easy. I tell people all the time, just because you see someone, don't get caught up in what you see. You don't know the steps it took them to get on that journey. And
Absolutely.
I think in this current state that we're in, we're all faced with that. There's no one discriminated against at all with this pandemic. It's affecting everyone everywhere. But it's a great time for you to look at yourself. So when I think about what God has brought me, if I didn't have the faith that I did 10 years ago, I'm not sure how I would be coping with the pandemic. The pandemic is existing. Honestly, I forget about it because I'm so focused on taking care of my son and making sure that he's protected, because he's considered high risk. He's medical fragile. He still has some things going on with him. He has cerebral palsy. That's his primary. So he's in a wheelchair.
Right.
So he's 4'5", 67 pounds. I still have to carry him. I still have to change his pull-ups. I still have to do everything for him. He's considered what they call triplegic. So he only uses one arm. He doesn't have the use of his left arm, and he doesn't have the use of his legs. So understand, he's depending upon me. And it's up to me on the energy and the life that I give back to him to let him know, you know what, son, we're going to make it. Even through a pandemic, even through all the things that I've seen him go through and fight for his own life, we're going to get through it. And when we were thinking, I was thinking about, I was like, Lord, what do I say to them to let them remind them, no matter how tough it gets, and that's hard as a parent, to look at your child in an incubator with all kind of tubes coming everywhere and having to decide whether to pull the plug or trust God for his life. But because of my faith, I leaned into the only thing I had, which was my trust and faith in God himself and my relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. I say that, and I don't push my relationship with God on anybody. I just share my truth. And that's my truth. And that keeps me my sanity. I did not know that years later, I would have to become a caregiver of my mother, who is 95 years old, who has Alzheimer's, aggressive, progressive stage of Alzheimer's. So you have to understand, I am changing pull-ups, feeding my 9-year-old son, and I'm doing the same thing for my 95-year-old mother simultaneously while the pandemic is going on. If I did not have an anchor in someone greater than myself, I would not be able to be talking to you or anyone else. I would not be here. But I say all that to say, we all go through something, no matter how devastating it is. It's the decisions we make at the moments and times that are critical, that will change the trajectory of how we see life, how we approach life, and how we respond to life. It's up to us. I hope that a lot of people would take in this time while they're alone to look and reflect at themselves. What's in your heart? What are your principles and values that you believe? And if you take all of that together, no matter what you face, you will see hope, light at the end of the tunnel. My son, I'm believing him, but just so you know, he just started talking at the age of 6. So for 6 years, there was nothing coming from my child.
Did you teach him a lot of, can he use one hand? Was he able to do sign language with one hand?
No, because it was hard to teach sign language with one hand.
Okay.
So we literally tried all kind of augmented devices and things, and then tried, but here's what I did. I didn't stop believing God. I asked the Lord to give him a voice so that he could speak for himself. No matter what the brain damage was, I asked the Lord for that. And I believed until it manifested in his life. Now my son is in the going to the 4th grade, reading at the 4th grade and 5th grade reading level, spelling at the same level. Now, does he have other challenges cognitively? Yes. But his spelling, his speech, impeccable. Matter of fact, he's a little funny. He's a comedian. If you ever seen some of his videos, I think you shared with me, he'll make you laugh.
Oh
And
yeah,
even,
your son had such whatever, you know, and the word that comes to mind when I hear you speak is the word love.
yes,
So, you
yes,
know, and it's not just the love, you know, when you say reflect on ourselves, I almost think it's almost as important to reflect on all those around you as well. You know,
absolutely.
what can you give to others that's going to give back to you as well, just organically. And I think
Absolutely.
that your passion to, because of your love for your mom, your love for your son, you don't have time to be looking at how you feel about a pandemic. You
Exactly.
don't have
But
time for that. This is about, you know, love and doing right and just listening to your son. I've watched a couple of videos. He's adorable. And, you know, anytime he wants to tutor my son, I'll be honest, you know, my son's strong point is more math. And, you know, he could use some of that help with the reading and the writing. So I think we all are born, you know, my son, I'll be frank. My son does have a disorder too, but a lot of people don't know about it. Why? Because
right.
there's so much love. And I've put so much in his life that helps him to improve and, you know, be the best version of himself, you know.
That's it. That's beautiful.
But the thing is, what I always tell my son is that no one is perfect, and we were all born with imperfections. We are perfect in our imperfections, and that we shouldn't look at it as a negative thing. It just happens that theirs are labeled.
Right. Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And I love the fact that you brought up the nucleus word. That is the word, that's the only word, that's the constant that can change anyone's life is love.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I learned when you have a child, and those who are parents, and those, especially those who are mothers who've carried their child and then delivered their child, you take on a newfound understanding of love because you're willing to die for that child. You're willing to do whatever it takes. That's the kind of love we're supposed to have for one another.
Yes.
If you and as a Christian, as a believer, it's my responsibility to love my neighbors as I love myself. But the problem that I've found in talking with a lot of people, especially in this pandemic, people don't love themselves. So they're having trouble with being confined someplace because they don't understand what love is.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I've learned, I've preached the gospel. I can quote scriptures all day long and things of that nature. And we know that it says God is love. But what it means is we have to love one another no matter what. And with that comes a lot of things that I know I've had to learn. I've had to learn the power of forgiveness. Because what I didn't mention was his biological father gave him up to die on his day of birth. So here you have parents with two different decisions, but thank God we weren't married because the law stands in my protection because I'm his mother. So for me, and the honest thing is, I just want people to know that no matter what it is, love is the constant thing. It's the only thing that will transform no matter what you believe. If you learn to love your neighbor and look out for your neighbor, then that neighbor learns to do. If we do it as a domino effect, I believe the world will change. I believe our perspective on life will change because we'll learn to value one another. And that's something I had to learn over 10 years. I've had to learn the power of love is something, and it doesn't mean you're perfect. You're not going to always get it right. I didn't make every decision right with my son. I didn't make every decision right with my mother, but because I loved them, I kept persevering past the pain and the agony. And trust me, I'm in a better place today than I was 3 weeks ago. And so I had to learn to love on myself. So as I shared with you earlier, I'm in a season of rest. So I'm resting my mind, my body, and my spirit so that I can continue to take care of my loved ones. And I've got a team of people that are helping with my mom. She's in a safe place. I'm good. I have someone here helping with my son. I am just now understanding loving yourself, loving others, and most importantly, loving God. We can change how we handle things, how we face difficulties, because we're all facing it. And this pandemic, unfortunately, it's not going anywhere. Let's be honest. I tease you all the time about how beautiful the water is where you are, and I'm sitting in where there's no water in Texas, and here you are having beautiful water there in Hawaii. However, at the end of the day, it's love that connects us, and we're miles away.
Yep.
We're miles away around from the world. If we just extend this to one another and do it on our social media platforms, I just want us to understand how powerful love can change lives.
Yeah. And with that, there has to be a sense of trust. it was interesting. There was this group that was online on social media, and the question was put out, how long does it take you to trust someone? Do you give it right away or not? And it was interesting because there were very few that actually, they had all their guards up and they're like, oh no, I don't trust right away. But, I really truly believe, I give my trust 100% right at the beginning. It's when I start seeing a change in character, or they reveal their true character, or that it just doesn't, jive with mine. That's when I just start to take, I just take a step away, not step away from you as a person, but step away from the things that I gravitate to, right? But I think that everyone should have, we need to trust one another. If you bring God into the equation, how I feel, or Jesus is, that path that he tells us to walk, would he walk the path of not trusting others, or would he say, no, embrace everyone and take it from there,
Right.
So
Right.
I think, love is being that kind of unconditional thing. You have to have the trust and the love for one another to move forward, and to allow yourself to grow.
Yeah, and that's key what you just said. The key thing is, I have to be honest, I was not a trusting person. It took a while for me to trust people because I've been hurt so much. So when you've been hurt and wounded, like a lot of people have, it's hard to gain trust again. But I changed how I trust. I put the trust in God, and I trust that God will guide me to the right people and will expose the wrong people. So I had to learn a different way of living in order for me to be a good example for Christ. And so for me, I was not trusting. I'm a New Yorker, let's be honest. Well, grew up, come on. We don't trust. Come on, we just get to the bottom line and get it done.
Yeah.
And because I grew up that way, and it doesn't mean it's a bad thing, it's just people, some mindset, you just have to find a way to look at every individual the way God created them. We were all made in his image and likeness. And if we were all made in his image and likeness, then there's got to be something in there that God can connect us to if he crossed our paths. Good people and bad people. People are in your life to grow you, to show you who you are, but also for you to be able to pour into them to help them become better people. Yeah. And it's the decision how we make. And like I said, I had to learn this. This is not something that I'm talking about, I've been doing this for years. No, I had to grow into that, but it grew because of my relationship with God, my relationship with trusting God and leaning on him more than myself. I think I shared with you in one of the things I sent to you, I had to learn I have no control. Right. I have no control over my life. We think we do. We can make decisions all day. One bad accident, everything changes. Yeah. So what I've learned is, let me put my trust in someone greater than myself. So if I don't understand why this person is treating me the way they do or not responding the way they are, I've just said, Lord, what do I do? And sometimes he'll say, love them anyway. Yeah. Just so show them love anyway.
How do you feel about the word worry? You mentioned in what you wrote back to me when I asked you about, what we're going to talk about. And you mentioned that, I like that. You said life is, living a life of uncertainties. It's very unpredictable. We don't know. With the situation that you're in, being a caregiver for your mom who has Alzheimer's, she's 95, and your son who, does have his condition as well, and being in a wheelchair, but a spirit that seems like he's running circles around everybody. I think, what can you say to the audience about the word worry? Like, do you ever worry about what's the next step, or do you just give it up, to him? What goes on in your mind?
That's an excellent question. Honestly, yes, be honest, I do worry, I get concerned, but I've learned, and I'm learning, and it's a progressive process, that every time I have concerns, the quicker I bring it to God, the easier it becomes for me. Now, I hadn't learned that trick, and I will be honest with you, and I say trick because it's really a revelation that I had to learn really, really hard, especially in these last 60 to 90 days. When I was literally on my knees crying because my mother, who has progressive Alzheimer's, and at the time she was living alone. So I was still caring for her while I was dealing with my son, and I had a meltdown. And I had to learn at that moment, I am not in control. And worry and uncertainties, we can't predict what tomorrow is going to bring us. We can't tell you what the next hour is going to bring us, but we have to find a way. And I had to find a mental way, a spiritual way, and a physical way to cope with all of this. Things are always going to change and evolve. This pandemic can go away right away, but something else will come in. What are we going to do? And when you don't have any control, the biggest thing I've learned is quiet prayer time, quiet meditation time, and then finding people that think like me to talk to get it out of me so that I can learn I can't handle this all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a superwoman. I'm not all answer to anything, but I can ask God, how do I do it? And then sit still and wait for him to answer. That's how I had to learn to deal with uncertainties, because they happen every day with me. There's no 2 days are ever like. Today will be a good day, but tomorrow it could be a total different day.
Yeah.
And I have to be at the hospital, or it could be anything could happen. So I had to learn I'm not in control. And every time I work myself up, the problem is I'm not thinking straight. So I'm making the wrong decisions. And I'm not giving my best self to people. And the challenge with that is that's not what God has for us. So I learned how to literally take away. If I have to go into the bathroom, a minute, cry out to God, God, Lord, help me. And be real with yourself, because we can't handle it. We ain't big enough, strong enough, bad enough, and smart enough to handle it. So Lord, help me. And then let him help you. That's something I had to learn. Let God help me.
Tell me about, like, okay, so there's, what's coming to mind is you did mention, you have others that you can speak out to, and that you're not alone kind of situation. Do you have a good support system? What could you say to those who are caregivers who, need to, when are there times where you feel really alone in what you're doing? And where, not just, I understand number one is your faith and turning to him, but where do you turn? Do you ever feel alone, or do you feel that you have great support in mankind?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't feel like I have a great support. Matter of fact, to be honest, I have opposition at the same time. So prayer is what I do, but I have people, and I go to counseling. Let me just be transparent. I do seek out professional counseling. I see my counselor every other week, because I can't handle this. But then I have people that I contact that know if I text them 911, they know that I need to talk no matter what time it is. And I cry to them, and they allow me to cry. They may not say nothing, they may not do much or anything. And a lot of times they just listen. And once I get it out, it helps me to hear myself talk about the situation.
Yeah, doesn't that always help? It's always good to have a sounding board. Like, I don't really, maybe we just need a cardboard picture and just talk it out.
Exactly. But you have to, because if you don't let it out in some form or fashion, you will internally die. And that I've been there before. So I know the pain of holding everything in and trying to be the answer to everybody no, I don't. So and there's a small group. It's a very narrow, tight knit group of people. And I wish it was bigger, but with the pandemic, I can't get as much help because one, COVID, I can't even see my mother where she is right now because of COVID-19. No one can come and help me with my son because of COVID-19, because he can't be around anybody else. So my support is very tight. So I have to have other ways of communicating. So my counselor connected me to other people who I can talk to get this out. And I have some people that I can call far and near. Hey, if I need them, they know when I call, okay, we need to listen to Jacquie.
Yeah. There was something else that you wrote that really stood out to me. Certain words just really trigger things in my brain. And one thing that you said was, now I just lost my train of thought with that. But shoot, I was thinking too hard on it now. See what happens? I don't know now. Just keep talking and it'll come to me, and then I'll interrupt you rudely.
That's okay. But no, like I said, one of the biggest thing that I say to people is, and I learned something even today. I think I shared with you, I attended a conference today, and I heard a woman share her story. We all have stories. Right. We all have experiences. We all have value to give to somebody. It may not be to a large audience. It may be to someone far away, someone near, but be open to talking to people about where you really are, not where people perceive you are. See, people don't know what I handle and where I am at times, because I don't sit here and put it out on social media all the time, or I don't make a big post about it. But there are people that I can literally go to and say, hey, I am breaking right now. What can I do? And those people will hone in and say, no, she's for real. She's really breaking one of my earpieces went out. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And so I've had to learn some things, and I made a lot of mistakes. Let's just be honest. And being honest with yourself is probably the biggest lesson a lot of us can learn. And having to learn to say, I need help, and be truthful with what kind of help you need, though. There's a difference
Yes,
in
yes.
help. It's the kind of help that you need. And the people have to understand your needs may not be what they perceive them as. Some
Yes.
needs are but you have to know what you need. And I had to learn that. And my biggest thing is having those individuals that I can just be transparent and saying, I feel helpless as a mother. I feel helpless as a daughter. I feel like my mother's now talking to me as she was a kid. How do I even deal with her? How do I even look at her and see her as my mom? If you don't understand how that feels as a daughter, then you really then sitting here is not listening or trying to fix stuff. I don't need people to fix stuff sometimes. Sometimes I just need people to listen. Sometimes I need people to cry with me as well and have the empathy. I think you were talking about that last time with one of your guests about empathy. We've lost that. We've lost the concern and compassion for other people as to where they are. We can't fix people's problems, but we can just be there, just listening to them,
Yeah.
just a text. I get text messages all the time, and they encourage my heart. I remember I was at a breaking point. When I tell you at a very breaking point, I was on my floor crying out to God like never before. And it was within the last 3 weeks. Don't remember the exact date. And a text came from a good friend of mine, clear across the state, just saying, God got you.
Yeah.
And it just broke me, because that just lets me know that God has me on his mind, that he put me on the mind of my friend in another state. And that person then just confirmed for me, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
I got up and I wiped my tears away. And I said, Lord, I don't know how you're going to fix it. I don't know how you're going to solve it. But I just trust that you love me enough to send a message to someone. And it was a text. It wasn't a phone call. The text was very simple. It was 3 words. God's got you, period.
Yeah. I know what I was thinking of now.
Mm-hmm.
You had written something, and it was basically about you. Well, I think my translation is, you've got to, and you said it earlier in something you said right now, but you got to go easy on yourself too.
Yes.
You know, we as humans, sometimes, even the way we were raised, you can do anything, you can be anybody, so you are always expected to be this perfect version of yourself. And that's why I think it is very hard for people to humble themselves and say, I need help, and I'm not so perfect, and this is what I need, and let me spell it out for you, because I definitely need this. When you talk about social media, people are always putting their best foot forward. Sometimes I feel guilty of that, but honestly, I look at life in a very positive way. I think one or 2 days out of the year, I go off in a negative direction, but I always come up with a positive story that I learned from whatever happened. But I want to share with you, because I think it's along the same lines. You have to come up with, in your mind, almost rules of the road for yourself. And I learned a while back, there was, I don't know, did you ever see that movie years ago? There were a bunch of Asian women, the Joy Luck Club.
I've heard of it. I didn't see it.
Yeah. So
I heard it, but I heard it.
Asian women, and they were all eating crabs. And it just reminded me of my family. And they were there, and the aunties were picking their teeth with the crab leg, they were like trying to hide. Yeah. And it was when my son was really little. And he had asked me, because I used to throw a lot of dinner parties, and he said, after the party, there were a bunch of little legs that were floating around in the bottom of the bowl, and I was taking them and eating them or whatever. And he said, Mama, what does the big crab taste like? And I looked at him and I just went, I don't know. And the reason is because I was always the type of person that took care of everybody. Like you almost overextend yourself. I think as women, we overextend ourselves. We are sort of ingrained in us to be the caregivers and make sure everybody else is happy. So I realized at that moment that I didn't know what the big crab, the big part, tasted like. So from that point forward, I decided that I was no longer going to give away the best crab. I was going to share the best crab. If it meant I broke off a piece and I had some. Why? because I would want to nurture my family. I would want to be able to explain to them what the best is like, and that you
Right.
shouldn't settle for, not saying that you have to have the best, but have them understand that it's okay to have nourishment and thrive through something and not always have to give it away. And
Mhm.
the other rule that I have, so I have 3 rules. One is you don't go off the path that God has created, because otherwise it gets a little bumpy. So might as well
Right.
walk that righteous path because it's so much easier. Second one is I go easy on myself. And I think that's something that you basically have said, you know, it's hard. You have to humble yourself and reach out to others. And the third is, like I said, I don't share. I definitely share now the good fortune that
Mhm.
I have, as opposed to just give it away. I think
And,
more
and you
people
know,
need to do that.
I agree with you. And one of the things that I love about when you go through something, the pureness of who you are does come out. One of the things that you mentioned, that I'm the founder of Jeremiah's Voice.
Yes.
And Jeremiah's Voice was birthed. I was turning, I would think I was teasing you, but I was turning 50 years old. And when I was 40, I had a big birthday party. It was really, really nice. I said, oh, when I turned 50, I decided not to have a birthday party. I decided to launch a nonprofit.
Right.
And the
Okay.
nonprofit is called Jeremiah's Voice. It's a public charity, and basically the focus is living beyond disability. Because I had to learn in the course of this journey, caring for my son, that he has a right to live, and every child like him, and every individual like him, no matter what you're facing, they have a right to live beyond, not to be perceived or bottlenecked into a definition of a diagnosis. And so it was put on my heart because I had some unfortunate experiences where I was able to go to Disney World and do some great things with my son because other people wanted to bless my life. And
Mhm.
I wanted to be a blessing. So instead of having a party about me, I launched a nonprofit and we gave away vacations to Disney World. We gave away Christmas gifts and things appropriate for disabled children at the holidays. We're providing support for families. That is an extension of my way of giving back to them. But in the process, before the pandemic, and the process was it was teaching other people, individuals with the disabilities or individuals who are different than you have a right to live.
Yeah.
And so I tend to give back, but I have learned how to give to myself. And I've learned that giving back to other people is me giving to myself.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love it so much.
That's great. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. I have to ask, is Jeremiah part of the process? Does he get to be part of that giving process to others through his organization? Does he
Uh,
enjoy? What does he do?
well, because of he has some cognitive delay. So let me clarify. He is 9 years old, but he doesn't have social. But he has autism as well. So he has cerebral palsy and he has autism. So he doesn't have the social skills at this current time to engage with other people.
Hmm.
He knows how to engage with adults a little bit, but he doesn't have communication. So like how you and I are going back and forth, he's not able to do that at this time. So a lot of the stuff that he does is from memory and repetitiveness. So kids with autism are very, very smart, exceptionally smart. They
Yeah.
can remember stuff and bring it back to you, and you're like, how did you remember? And they remember it so well. So because of those communication challenges, he's not as engaged. Now he does participate. He loves when he sees people getting excited. And so he enjoys that. I don't know if you can see the pictures behind me, but the top picture, one to my right or your left, is him, and the other person is a young man we sent to Disney World.
Oh,
um
nice.
and so but they didn't communicate with one another, but it was just their body language, it was
Mhm.
their expression, it was their way of just smiling at one another.
Yes.
And whether there was words exchanged or not, body language tells us a lot. I didn't realize how much it communicates. So he's not in that position, so he doesn't play as much of a role in it, other than being my inspiration for waking up every day with a big smile and letting me, just that smile alone, letting me know I can do it.
Yeah. So you got me thinking about something else. Uh, how important do you feel it is for those who have disabilities? I know that they're obviously on different ends of a spectrum, or somewhere in between. How important is it to socialize with those that are similar to you? Is it important for them to, or not, or just to be around just everyday folk, and that you don't focus on the disability, or the situation that you're in?
That's a little challenging because of the world that we live in. Unfortunately, it's not always receptive of people that are like my son. So when you see my son in a public setting, This has
Mm-hmm.
happened to us several times where we're being out in a restaurant, and because my son rocks his head sometimes, or is rocking, because that's just one of the triggers that happens with brain damage. A lot of kids will look at him instead of coming to him or coming to me and asking me questions about him or how to engage with him. I'll hear them saying, talking here and there. And a lot of times, because I'm an open kind of person with this, I approach the parents and say, if the kids want to come and ask me questions of why he's different or what's about him and how can they communicate with him, they're more than welcome to. And I've allowed kids to come to me and say, well, why does he do that? And I'll explain to them in the best way that I can.
Yeah.
But it is a little hard to do that when you have such drastic difficulty, because you can see his physical. Some of the people who have disabilities, you cannot see. So they don't have social ability, especially on the autism spectrum. They don't have the ability to tell you that they want to socialize. And sometimes they don't want to. Their world is just consumed of themselves, and not because they're selfish. It just, that's how their brain is functioning.
Yeah.
So it depends on the environment. I do take Jeremiah out to parks. He goes, well, before pandemic, let me say, before COVID-19, he would go places, engage in birthday parties or things of that nature. Now, sometimes he would be alone. Sometimes the kids would go and want to push his wheelchair. When he used to go on field trips with his students of class, I never got to do anything with them. The kids all did everything with him. They were like, no, Jeremiah, and he would love it. And he learned their names. So it all depends on the environment. And you have to, as a parent of a special needs kid, you have to look at the environment, because not every environment is welcoming. The unfortunate part, there are a lot of people who are very mean, very nasty, and are very offensive.
Yeah.
So my first thing as a parent, or this as a parent, is to protect. So you have to know the environment that you're in. And so that's why I love,
just, we have to forgive others for what they
Right.
say. I mean, I'll be honest,
Absolutely.
I had someone, I'm not going to say because it just happened, but
Okay.
they made a comment about how, physically my son was involved in something, and physically we knew from the very beginning when he first started, it was not, he was going in circles physically. He couldn't do what other kids were doing. But then 3 weeks into it, it was that connection, the right left brain, whatever, things were starting to fire off because of the repetition. But when my son actually wanted to leave this environment, he's been doing it for 4 years. The instructor had actually said to me, I wish he wouldn't, and then said something that was sort of offensive, but they don't realize that they're being offensive, and it was that kind of thing where she just said, well, at the beginning, all the instructors, all we kept thinking was, what is wrong with that kid? Is something wrong with him? And to have somebody say that to my face, I was just like,
Yes.
trying to show my best self, maybe my eyes were squinting a little bit. I don't know, but you still have to be in a place of forgiveness and
Absolutely.
love towards others. And, sometimes people just misspeak, but there are some that are just plain old mean. And I get that too.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. And like I said, and forgiveness and being open. I don't look at people my son is a little bit different, because you can see he's in a wheelchair. You can physically see his impairments.
Yeah.
You can see his disability. He has a big scar on his head. So those are the obvious, but there are kids who are very much like him, who are not in a wheelchair. But I've learned that every person, and that's the thing, it goes back to the conversation we had initially. It's about the love. And if people, look at each individual for who they really are. Because what you see on social media, and let's be honest, is not who people really are. That's their representation of who they are. Let's be authentic. And so that's why I try to talk to parents. Don't let anyone tell you who your child is. Don't let a teacher, a doctor, or anybody tell you who your child is. Only believe what your child can do based on what you believe in your heart. And I had to think about that, because it was hard for Jeremiah. I mean, he was in the house. He was in the hospital more. He was in school. So he didn't get that growing, around. He doesn't have any of the kids around him. So it's just him. And now the pandemic, it's really just him. But because of that, he has breakdowns in his brain. So he has behavior challenges. So he's hollering and screaming more. Most people don't want to deal with that. I get it. So I try to be protective of him and them and explain, this may not be a good time. Jeremiah's having a meltdown. He's hollering a lot. I don't know if you can handle it right now. So maybe let's wait till a better day. It's those kinds of conversations with people, and those who want to be welcome. Then you just have people who just, like I said, don't care. It's all about them. They don't want to, those individuals, all you do is can pray for them and literally try to do your best. And that's the reason why I'm proactive and a big advocate. And I'll fight for kids like Jeremiah, educational, legally, however, because I want people to respect and value them as human beings, just like you and I. They're just different than you and I.
Yes.
but you and I are different.
Right. That's what I mean. It's like we all have our imperfections and just different degrees, and some we can see a little more obviously than others. But you're right. It is about the love and respect for one another. And I think that love also just drives us to be healthy. You know, I think that that really helps us to maintain a sense of strength and happiness during this time and anytime, even after this pandemic. I think all throughout our lives, we really need to focus on that and treat each other with kindness. Um, you know, I'm really glad that you were on with me today to share about Jeremiah's Voice. I like to hear what the organization is actually doing. If you were to either sum it up or to give any last words of advice to those who are caregivers or those who, you know, and that's one thing, you know, I'm not going to dive into too much of my own personal stuff because this show is supposed to be about you and Jeremiah. My whole thing is there are times where you are a caregiver, because I've been there, and there aren't enough resources. People are always talking about the individual who has the condition, but there's no one there to really take care and focus on those who are the caregivers. So do you have any advice as far as what to do to reach out to that, or how to get that into your life? Because when I had to take care of someone, this was 10 years ago, there really wasn't anything for me. I didn't know where to go. And so I sort of felt on my own. Do you have any thoughts about that? And then anything else you want to share with us, any words of wisdom or advice?
No, and what you're saying is so true about caregivers. They are the most probably least remembered individuals. And I was thinking about something one day. It came to my head. You know, we have a grandparents' day, we have a sister's day, we have a siblings' day, we have all these days. I don't know if there's a caregiver day.
We got to make one.
And you know, and I think about that because, yeah, I agree with you. Because caregivers they don't have that. And even now, it's not like there's a whole lot. I connect with a lot of other people who are caregivers on social media. So I join some of the groups and listen to the stories and encourage people through social media. You know, there are organizations beforehand, before all this shut down, you know, you can connect with. But honestly, most a caregiver is tired. And most of the time, they just want people who are around them to just have a little empathy. I had somebody say to me one day, you know, even if they go get someone's groceries for them, you don't even understand how simple a thing like that can do. I've had people send me meals, you know, there'll be a delivery will be at the house. And I'm like, wow, I don't have to cook today, you know, or, you know, it's thinking about how we can help one another. And if you know someone that's a caregiver, whether it's the caregiver of a special needs child or an elderly parent, have empathy towards them and ask them what they need. Don't assume what they need. The key thing is, if you ask me what I need, I'm going to tell you, hey, can you stop by the store, or do you mind running this to the laundry or the cleaners for me? There'll be things that they'll tell you, and it'll be simple things, or just sending them something that's on your heart. Like I said before, a text. Caregivers are people who are selfless. They give so much of themselves, they deplete themselves, but they need people to pour back into them so they can replenish themselves. And that's not something that happens a lot. And I honestly, I'm in dealing with two different generations. I'm dealing with two different dynamics, but I'm dealing with something that's very similar. They both have neurological disorders. My son had brain damage when he was born, and Alzheimer is a brain disorder, and it deteriorates the brain as the person is older. It is one of the most dangerous diseases. Once it happens, it is very hard. I listen to other families who are literally having their parents literally cursing them out or talking to them and doing things. I mean, taking their clothes off. There's all kinds of things. And this is the one that raised them. So you have to understand all of that's happening in the psychic of a caregiver. And yet their first thing is, how do I protect my mom or protect my dad? How do I protect my loved one? How do I protect my in-laws or whoever that person is? And the hardest thing is having caregivers have an outlet, somebody that just cares enough about them to just check on them. You know, a call a day, something like that, just reaching out. Because unfortunately, with everybody being locked in, caregivers cannot go out. Because if they're caring for a sickly person, guess
Yeah.
what? They have to protect themselves.
Right.
So just the phone calls, the Zoom calls, being creative. Hey, saying, hey, what can we do? You know, what can we go do for you? And I'm, it's hard to say that, and it's sad to say, but caregivers are the people that they forget. They're
Yeah.
forgotten. And it's sad because there's a lot. I've watched, if you get on Facebook, go join some of these groups. You will hear people literally crying, begging for people just to pray. Can I get some encouraging words? Because you feel alone.
You feel alone.
And
You know, even I
and
know they're not, you know, my kids, I mean, I'm just saying it's just an idea, but my, you know, my daughter and her best friend, they live as far away as possible. One lives in Florida and the other one here in Hawaii, right? So, and your best friends, they actually Zoom a lot together to get through this time, but they send care packages to each other.
that's a great idea.
Yeah, they send each other little things, you know, little things from Hawaii that she probably misses here, you know, and lovely letters, handwritten letters, you
Yes.
know, saying
Yes.
how much they care about each other. And it's such a warmth, you know, that fills them, you know, that a Zoom call or a, you know, just a text can't do. So if some people can just go a little further in showing how much they care, they can do something like that. And it's not
Right.
that hard.
Right. And I love that. The care packages, the writing the letters. I mean, I have been, you know, of course, texting tends to be the most thing, but getting a letter handwritten from somebody is, I mean, it's like, wow, they thought about me.
Yes.
You know, it is in the care package. I love it. But those are the kind of things people can do. And it doesn't take a lot of time. It's just a matter of sitting down and finding out. So there is someone right next door to you that you may not even know what they're going through, but doing something like that would really change their life.
Yeah.
And
And that's
I
her
love
neighbor.
that
She
idea.
went around and gave flowers from her garden to all the neighbors.
Yeah.
Because you don't know
Yeah.
what they're going through, whether they're
Exactly.
caregivers or not. You know, life is, you know, people are going through hardships themselves. I'm just hoping that this area that we've talked about today, this, you know, insight is going to help some individuals with not feeling so alone
Yeah.
and knowing that, you know, little tips to help them get through. If they wanted to speak with you or reach out to you, how would they get in touch with you, Jacquie?
The best place is jeremiahsvoice.org. You can email at info@jeremiahsvoice.org. On Facebook, look for Jeremiah's Voice. We're on Facebook, Twitter, we're on Instagram. So all you have to do is just look for Jeremiah's Voice. I am the president and founder. So everything comes to me right now because we're kind of closing down a little bit until the holidays come around. But just reach out and just check us out and literally just know that thinking of someone else. If you leave from anything that we've said today, is think of someone else other than yourself for a
Yes.
brief moment.
Yes.
And when you do that, you make a difference.
And that's
And
how
the
this
difference
show
that you
got
make.
started, actually, because I was on with a bunch of women. It was a networking thing. And everyone, the women that were really depressed on there were so focused on their sadness about being at home. And they were using negative words. Well, at least I have this. At least I have that. And I said, how about we change how you're thinking and use different words like, I am so grateful that I have this. I am blessed to have that. And to part of the project that I suggested was that everybody get out there and do something for someone else. You
Absolutely.
know,
And that's the key right now. That's what we all should be doing. And sometimes you know, people always say, well, I may not have, because a lot of people are suffering financially. I get it. But if you have a phone, it's still working, a text, getting on social media, a message, an Instagram message or a Facebook message. When I get those messages, people don't understand, it changes my whole day
oh,
because
I'm going to be messaging you all the time where you're going to be like, doesn't this girl quit? I mean, okay, I get it. You want to say hi. You care about me.
well, but that's what people want. People need that right now. Let's think about it. Whether you're a caregiver, just living life, you want to know somebody else cares about you. Even if you have a wonderful family and a wonderful support, you want to know that you are cared about, that you're thought about, that someone's thinking of you. There are so many people that have lost so many. I was just on Facebook just a few minutes ago, right before this call and with you, and I've seen 3 people that passed away that I knew.
Yeah,
And I'm sitting
someone
here.
just I know just passed away this week too. 27-year-old was on the Zoom with us on Saturday. Uh, just saw a bunch of people on Monday night, and she died Monday night. She had an aneurysm. Her heart
Just
valve wasn't working right, and she was walking through Target and just fell over after seeing everybody. So you just never, ever know. Life is short and precious. And
It
she lived
is.
life though to its fullest. She was a happy-go-lucky
That's
kind of
good. That's,
gal, you know?
yeah,
And that's what I wish upon everyone, that everyone can live
absolutely.
life to its fullest and as happy as we can, because there's no
Yes.
guarantee for the next day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And don't take people for granted.
don't take people
Don't
for
take
granted.
people for granted.
Yeah. Well,
That's
I'm
the
not going
biggest
to
thing
take
I've
you for
learned.
granted,
I
Jackie.
know.
I love
I know you're
talking
not
to
stage.
you.
No.
So one last thing, because Jeremiah's
Yes.
Voice is doing such great work, I haven't asked other organizations this, but I'm going to ask this of you. Is there anything, like, how do people contribute to your cause? What do they need to do if they wanted to?
Just go to our website, jeremiahsvoice.org, and click on donate. It comes right to us. We're going to be prepping up for our Hope for the Holidays campaign. We are right now just narrowing because of everything I have going on with my mom. We're just going to focus on the holidays season as we gear up and basically give gifts. And the thing that I say that's different about our gift giving is that we give catered meals. So we have a catered meal delivered for Christmas Day. We
Nice.
also give age specific and disability appropriate gifts
I was going to say,
because
they have to be
they're
appropriate that way too.
exactly, because
Yeah.
what people don't know is what to give someone. If you know someone is on an autism spectrum and you have a child that's 16 years old, but their cognitive level is at 3-year-old, most of the times people are not going to tell you to give them a gift because they're going to want to give them for a 16-year-old. And
Mm-hmm.
so we try to kind of mystify some of that and kind of help people feel comfortable giving through us so that we can give them specifically what they need. And so we partner with organizations, agencies actually, who have people that we know are vetted through, who need these kind of help and support. And then we find out what their needs are in all different categories. And then we go shopping for them. And this
That
time
is
it's
so
all going to be
wonderful.
online. So everything's going to be mailed to them this year instead of normally last few years, we've actually been delivering them. So this year we're going to do everything online, make it automated, because we want families to know that the holiday season is coming. We've been dealing with the pandemic, but when Christmas comes around, we know that's the giving time of the year that people still want to give. And we want to be able to help those families who literally are dealing with things beyond just the pandemic or anything else.
Yeah. Well, I hope that the audience has received some value in this conversation. I always find something of value and I always learn something from every person that I speak to. And I really appreciate your time, Jackie. And
Thank you.
I wish you the best of luck with Jeremiah's Voice and all the uncertainties,
I
that,
know.
yeah, it's challenging times and I, for everyone, but you're speaking of yours and I wish you the best in
Thank you.
those situations.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I have been so blessed to be introduced to such wonderful people such as you. I'm so glad to have you be a
Yes.
part
Yes.
of this, part of
Yes.
Valence
Thank you.
Fitness. So I appreciate you. So, okay. Well, thank you very much. Any last words? Anything you want to share last minute?
Again, I just want to celebrate you again. I
Ah,
believe in when people give a vision and they do it and they execute on it, they should be celebrated. And I thank you for thinking of other people. You're doing exactly what we've been talking about. You're just
excellent.
doing it through this vehicle. And thank you
Yes.
for that. And
Yeah.
thank you for connecting with people from around the world. Because like I said, you're in Hawaii, I'm in Texas. And wherever people are going through. And so you're connecting people. And that's a blessing because that's how people can help and learn about different things. So I celebrate you in what you're doing, and I know that you'll be successful.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And these episodes are found on YouTube, so it's under Manners and Momentum. And once I get this up and I'll let you know. And
Okay,
please
well, please
share
do.
with everyone. That's the whole idea, is to share our stories with each other. So
Yes.
thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you,
Thank
everyone,
you.
for tuning in. And please feel free to reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram under Manners and Momentum. If you want to drop me a message of anyone that you do know that you feel has a story to tell about adversity and how to think in a positive way moving forward, I would love to be able to talk to that individual, because it is great to have different type of guests all the time. All right. Thank you so much, Jackie. You take care. And thanks
You too.
everyone for tuning in.